we've been following the updates from the Weather Service, and not only from the local weather service, but the radio station, the TV stations, and everything. And we actually, the night of the tornado, we actually had, in this room, we had a Christmas party going on just before it happened. And I'd been receiving calls from David Elliott, and he kept updating me of when it was gonna come into Caldwell, or when it was gonna come into Kentucky, when it was gonna hit Fulton, when it was gonna hit Mayfield, and he projected it at the very beginning. They were talking about it was gonna be probably 9 o'clock before it got to Fulton or something. But then he just kept calling me and updating me, and it's closer and it's closer, and here it is now. And so from there, we were also listening to WPSD TV. We had TV on in the EOC room where we could see it. And dispatch is also located in this building. And I informed them to make sure that when it hit, when the warnings came out, just to keep putting it out over the radio and keep putting it out, keep blowing the weather sirens. And that's basically how we prepared for it that night. And we did lose power at the EOC, but our generator did kick on, and we lost the power to our main transmitting antenna, but we were able to overcome that. And it's just one of those things, we just had to adapt to it. And after the storm passed the EOC, then we started getting out and responding, because it in our county, it was on the ground for the entire length all the way through Caldwell County. I've always said in the past that it seemed like when there's a storm projected to come towards us, when it either hits the Ohio River or the Mississippi River, it just turns and goes around us. But this one did not turn, and it we were prepared. We had actually had the checked all our generators to make sure that they were all operational, but we did have a malfunction with the one at the tower site, and it was a sensor that said it was low on water, which it wasn't, and because it had been checked. And but that's just one of those things. You've got to have duplicate ways of communicating. Praying that it didn't come through the middle of Princeton like it did the middle of Mayfield. We lost a lot of homes out around the country club. We lost a lot of homes, and we lost 4 people over out on the Dawson Road before you get into Dawson. But if it had come through the middle of town and taken out our government buildings, our fire station, all our fire trucks for the city and county are in one station right across from the courthouse. If it had gotten that, we would have really been hurting. We try to keep, emergency management, we try to keep our stuff spread out in different locations. I've got some stuff at the Fredonia station in Fredonia, and then I've got stuff at this building. I've got stuff at one of the other fire stations in town that is more or less a storage station.
Come on, Jace, we got to go. So we grabbed our dogs and headed over there, and it was early. It was early from the projection. We had just got there and hadn't been there just a few minutes when it hit. And from where I live, all the way around, the trees were huge tree across my, I mean, we could have been caught anywhere in there. And so we got down there, and we got in there and was sitting there. I was still skeptical in there, because just sitting there. And there was a heating unit in the middle of the little room. The room wasn't very big, just maybe, 10 by 14, just a small room, and there was a heating thing in the middle. And they were all, my rest of the family was behind it, mom, dad, sister, and these, and all, they're all behind it. Me and Jace were sitting here in front of the door, went up that way to the steps, and was sitting there, and we could hear it coming. And I said, Jace, I turned around, looked at him, I said, tornado's coming, buddy. About that time, our ears started popping, and the door blew open and started blowing stuff down there, and I took him and shoved him. He was already headed that way anyway, over there, and he jumped on top of them, and the only place for me to go was over here on this side of the heater. So it blew in and then started sucking out, and I'd made it to the wall and got down the wall beside the heater there, and we thought the house was gonna come off the top of us, and the house had to be tore down. It was damaged enough, but it stayed on there good enough, and we stayed down after it went over. We stayed down there for a little bit, you know, maybe 30 minutes or so. And me and Dad couldn't stand it. We just had to go look. They were having a fit for us not to go out there naturally, and so we opened the door, and it's just pitch black. And we had flashlights, but still, it's just pitch black. So we had no clue really what had happened. They had an outbuilding back there and a barn, and we saw that those were gone. So we knew something, you know, a little more had happened. And so Dad went to check on his place, and I went to check on. I had to walk down the highway. We couldn't get through his yard for the trees, and he went on up there at his place, and I was down there checking on mine and just looking things over, and was coming back down the road. I was just gonna go back to that house in the basement because, you know, that's the only place we had to go. And it was still thundering and lightning and everything, and a flash of lightning hit, and our neighbor across the road, directly in front of the house we got in the basement of, she had a nice barn, she had 2-car garage, a beauty shop, house. It was completely gone. And I just ran down there and started hollering for her, and I could hear her hollering, and the debris it wasn't waist high probably. And so I got down there to her, and she was sitting on the back, just sitting there holding her dog. And how she made it, I have no clue. It's just a miracle that she even made it. And she wound up having all her ribs broke, busted spleen, head injuries, and I like to not got her through the debris. And that some neighbors had made it over there by then, and we got her into a house. It was empty, that was in front of hers, and we got her in there. And by that time, I knew that her fiance was somewhere, so I just was looking for him, and it was about maybe a couple hours. A state trooper that lived in the neighborhood had made it in from Lexington and come down and had made it down the highway, and was helping me look for him, and we had found him later on, about 2 hours later. But it was definitely the worst night I've ever had.